Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries, and in this edition we're going to be talking about blogging, and specifically we're going to be talking about why you'd want to blog in your classroom. So this is kind of geared toward our teachers here in our district here. So our topic again is why blog in your classroom. Now, in previous editions of Digital Discovery, we've talked about how to make a blog. We've talked about where to go to make a blog, like in Project Share or Weebly or WordPress. There's all these different kinds of blogs that are out there. But we never really kind of talked about what are some of the reasons that, that you'd want to blog. And so that's what today's episode is about. What are some reasons? I'm going to give you a few reasons, then I'm going to send you to a website that's got even more reasons for you. And that website actually was the inspiration for today's show. And that's kind of one of the first reasons why you want to blog, because you can share your ideas with other people. So at the end, I'll give a shout out to that particular blog. And so let's look at some reasons, and then we'll talk about what each one of those means. So one of the first reasons that we'd want to blog in our classroom, and now we're talking about a classroom blog here, and so having our students interact with something that you post up online. And so that's kind of what a blog is, where you create some content, then the students write back, or the students create some content and the rest of the other students comment back. And so that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about blogging. There's a difference between blogging and going on to a website and just leaving a comment like on a newspaper. A newspaper forum section or a magazine forum section, that's not really blogging. That's where they've posted an article and then people are kind of just like reacting to that article. What we want to do when we're talking about blogging is that we create some kind of content that has a very specific purpose. Maybe it's something related to class, maybe it's something we're doing in the campus, and we want to target that to a specific audience, whether it's parents or our students. And so that's kind of where we're at when we talk about blogging. So what's one of the first reasons that we'd want to blog in our classroom? Now remember, blogging, when we're doing it, is we're trying to get a response back from our students. So when we're blogging and students are responding back to us online, just the act of doing that, just the act of posting online does this. It builds social skills and confidence. Now, some of you might say, well, really, how does doing that online build social skills and confidence? Well, what happens is that a lot of students, we have found, are not reluctant to post online when they might be reluctant to post in class. So the students that might be shy, they may not want to appear to be dumb in front of their peers, they may not want to put out that wrong answer in front of their peers, in a classroom setting are much less reluctant to do that on a setting where, even though they put their name, it's kind of less face to face. And so we have found that social skills and confidence building happen when you ask students to start posting replies to questions online when you have a blog. So that's one of the benefits of having an online classroom blog. Another benefit of having a classroom blog is we can practice through modeling internet safety. We can practice what we want our students to do through having a blog. So when a student might put up an inappropriate response, we can respond back in kind of the safe environment of a walled garden of a blog. We can either, depending on the response of course, but we can gently remind them this is not the proper way to interact online. This is what we are supposed to do. These are the behaviors that we have online. Generally, the rule is the way you act in class is the way you act online. If you would not say that, I always like to use the grandma rule. If you wouldn't speak that way in front of your grandma, you shouldn't speak that way online. And so we can actually practice that internet safety with our students here, and we can model for them and they can model for each other proper online behavior, and that's very, very important. I think we've all seen and heard of incidents where students are not behaving properly online, and a classroom blog is a good place to start exposing our students to proper online safety. Another really good reason to have an online blog is that you can have that homeschool connection. Parents can see what's going on in class. They can actually see and in some cases even interact with the teacher by having that blog, where students can actually say, look, here's tonight's question, here's what we're supposed to do, here's where we're at. And so even parents that may not be able to access a blog at home, they might be able to go, say, to a public library or some space that has an open internet access, and they can see what's going on in class. And so you can actually say to your parents, look, here's our expectation, here's where our students are online. And so parents and the community can actually see what's going on in class, and they can actually see what your expectations are. And that's very, very important when you can control that conversation. And by having that online blog where your students are expected to interact and interact properly, then you're making that great homeschool connection. It's another great way to communicate to parents as well. You can actually say, you know, we've got tests coming up. You can put up your schedule online. It's a great place to you know, we used to have lots of paper newsletters that have kind of gone away. This has replaced those paper newsletters that we used to send out all the time. Another thing that we want to give our students, ICT, is Internet Computer Technology Skills, or Interactive Computer Technology Skills, or Interactive Communication Technology Skills. There's all these different ICT things. What that is that by having a blog, we're teaching our students simple things like keyboarding. We're teaching them how to use a computer properly. We're teaching those students how to use those ICT skills properly. Now, when you start a blog and when you've got little ones, they may not be able to interact as well, and so you may want to, say, limit your response to a sentence. Older students that have better keyboarding skills, that might have better ability with the keyboard, you might want to say, I want a paragraph response. But you've got to start teaching students these computer skills somewhere, and what a better way to do that is by having them type responses, interact with you online with that blog. So social skills and confidence, internet safety, homeschool connection, ICT skills, all those are great reasons to have a classroom blog. Another one is that you start building a classroom community. I know that in many campuses, classrooms are isolated from each other, even though you may be teaching the same thing. For instance, you're teaching 6th grade science, or you're teaching 9th grade algebra, or you're teaching 12th grade English language arts, English 3, for instance. You may be teaching that all day. You may have multiple classes, but those classes are in kind of a silo. They don't ever interact with each other, and so the students in first period never talk to the students in last period. Students in third period never talk to the students in fifth period, even though you might be teaching the exact same thing, for instance, in our middle schools and high schools. By having an online blog, you can increase that interactivity between classes. Students in first period can actually interact with students in 7th period. Students in third period can interact with students in 5th period. And they can start sharing ideas. They can start communicating with each other. They might have ideas. Those third period students might have heard something a little bit different than the students in 7th period. It's very difficult as a teacher to give exactly the same lesson with exactly the same vocabulary throughout the whole day. So you might say something in third period that your students might pick up on that you didn't say 7th period, or vice versa. And so those students can actually interact with each other and say, hey, did you hear Mrs. Smith? She said that in third period about X, Y, and Z. The 7th period students say, oh, I don't remember her saying that. And so they can share that online in the blog So creating that classroom community where the students actually start interacting with each other, that's an important part of and a great reason to start having a blog online. Another one is that you have an authentic audience. You have this great audience where students can actually interact with each other. Sometimes things put up online, they create this false audience. For instance, I'll go back to newspaper articles. Well, in a newspaper article, the comment sections usually are the same people commenting over and over, and they have an agenda and things like that. But in a blog, in a classroom blog, you're creating an audience that is interested in just what you're saying. You have this authentic audience. You can ask authentic questions. You can ask questions that have to do particularly with that lesson that you're doing. And so the students start to see that being online is not such a bad thing, that the audience, you know, we're always talking about having authentic lessons. We're having lessons that are actually aligned to their everyday life. And so they can actually start talking about how what they're doing in real life matches with your blog. And so that's what that authentic is all about. So that's kind of an interesting idea about having an authentic audience there. And finally, a global connection. Depending on how you set up your blog, depending on how you set it up, you can open it up to the world. You can open it up to anybody that wants to comment back. So it can go beyond just your classroom. So if you feel safe enough, if you feel confident enough that you want to open up that blog to your whole global community, all of a sudden you'll start getting responses from all over the world. And wouldn't it be very interesting if your students were starting to interact with students in Australia or China or Germany or Argentina, for instance? Wouldn't that be a very interesting thing? And that can happen once you post stuff up online for everybody to see. Now, word of warning there, you want to be careful. One of the things that we have to stress here whenever you put something up online is that you have to constantly keep tabs on it, because you never know the kind of weird stuff that might happen. Not saying it will happen, but it might happen. So you actually have to be like a gardener and make sure that none of the weeds are there. And if there are weeds, you pick them out. And so don't start a blog and then just let it go, because I can guarantee you that after a while if you let it go for 3 months and then come back, you're going to have lots of inappropriate material, and that's not the kind of the thing that you want to share with your community. You want to show that your blog is up to date. You want to show that your blog is always being looked at by the teacher, and that instills confidence by the parents also. So those are just seven different reasons that you might want to have a blog in class. There's lots of different reasons besides that, of course, but those are the 7. And so I want to give a shout out to where I got those 7 from. There's actually a website. It's called Educators Technology and Mobile Learning website. This particular article came from their blog on that website at tinyurl.com CO982KC. That's where they have it. And actually, I gave you 7. In this article, there's 8. So go read that article and find out that 8th reason why to have a blog. And I bet you can probably figure out some reasons to have a blog as well. It's pretty easy to set up a blog. If you have a Project Share account, you can do it. You just start writing, post it up online. It becomes part of your website in Project Share. If you need help setting up your Project Share account, make sure you talk to your instructional technology specialist. They can help you start there, and they can also help you show you how to set up your blog. Pretty easy stuff. Some reasons to set up a classroom blog. There's lots of reasons. Those are 7. I'm sure you can think of a lot more. So thanks for joining me today for this edition of Digital Discoveries. We'll see you next time.